In this video, I'm going to be showing you how I've made something I've never made before, which is a three-legged table. It's also extremely skinny at about 12 inches wide, so the engineering of it became a little challenging at certain points. The customer provided me with this bench. She basically wanted me to repurpose the top and use it to make a sofa table. The lumber of this bench is acacia wood, which is not easily available in America, which is where I live, and if you can find it, it's extremely expensive. So part of the challenge was matching the base to the top. I started by taking the bench apart, and this was the design of it was two slabs. She wanted to streamline it, remove the wave that's on the one side, and then just glue it back together. The goal was to keep as much of the width as possible. She wanted it to be at least 12 inches because I believe it's going to be used as a work surface at times. As you can see, removing that wave was leaving these little flanges that kept getting stuck in my riving knife. I'm making note of that because I remove it in order to finish the cuts, but sometimes the riving knife actually creates a more dangerous situation than what it's supposed to do, which is prevent them. Once I had them cut, I could clamp them together, and they came in at over 12 inches, so I was good in that capacity, and I could start working on the legs. For the legs, I chose alder. I went back and forth with a couple different species, but the alder was somewhat inexpensive. It's a softer wood, but it's not going to ding too much. The grain pattern matched the acacia pretty well. It also had a lot of brown hues in it, which I thought was going to be easier to stain match than a lumber like maple, which I was also thinking of using, which is much lighter. The one problem with alder is that it does have a lot of knots in it, and the original tabletop or bench top also had some imperfections in it, so it didn't have to be completely clear grain, but I did buy enough lumber, accounting for the fact that I'd be cutting out a bunch of knots. Now this came from a hardwood supplier, so it was very nice material that was already pretty much planed on both sides, but I planed it until it was smoother to get it to the thickness I wanted, which was a little under an inch. And then I rough cut it down to size so that I could safely rip it on the table saw one side clean. If this lumber was severely cupped or bowed, you can't really do that, but I don't have a jointer, and if you cut your pieces into smaller sizes, it's much safer to rip one side clean the way I did. Once I had one flat side, I could bring it back to the saw, rest it against the fence where it's now flat, and get it closer to my rough size. The taper on this is not very severe. It's only about 2 degrees off of 90. The base is a little over 5 inches and the top is a little over 3, and that was a style that she picked. So all I did was I drew up that angle on that scrap piece of ply, and I carefully cut it out with my circular saw. I took the two pieces and stapled them together so I have a little bit more depth, and that's basically the guide that will give me my first taper. I put a stop on the bottom so the lumber can't kick back out on me, and then the thought process was that this could just ride along the fence and cut that taper for me. I have a tapering jig, but because this lumber is so skinny, it wasn't safe enough to attach it to the jig and send it through. After a couple dry runs, I realized my jig was way too short, so I added an extension to it, and then I could try sending my first piece through. Now, as you can see, at the same time as the taper, I'm also cutting a bevel, so that when all four of these sides go together, it's similar to putting a bevel on a box. You'll have no end grain, they'll all be mitered corners, and it will make it look like one nice solid piece. So that was the first cut, and it worked out pretty well, but the problem was, especially towards the end, my jig was kicking off the fence a little bit, but you can see that taper's lined up to my original marks on my first board. So in order to make it a little bit more of a safer cut, all I did was create somewhat of a cradle on the jig. I just tacked in place a vertical that sets against the fence. I could put another one on top of the fence and then another one on the other side of the fence, so it cradles the fence and it can't pull away anymore because it's now nestled on top of it. This just made the cuts a little bit cleaner, a little bit nicer, and it also was safer to send it through after making that minor change. So then now you can see it slides nicely. I don't have to worry about it kicking back at me. Pretty simple change. Like I said, I didn't want to take a lot of time on this jig because I will most likely never make another table like this. And then I could send through my second piece. Now, as you can see on this one, these ones are going through bottom first, which you'll notice that changes when I do the second taper. And then those are the cuts on all of my first sides. Now for the second taper, you cannot use the exact same jig because you're no longer referencing off of a square side. You're referencing off of a side you've already removed 2 degrees from. So what I worked out was, if it was 2 degrees past 90, I needed to double that measurement in order to get it to have the second taper. So the second jig is basically referencing off of 4 degrees because you're starting with a piece that's not square against your fence. I made a second jig similarly to how I made the first one, and then cut the second side all the same. But you could see the second side was going top first. Because I'm also doing the bevel, I couldn't switch to my fence. Sometimes you could switch your fence to the other side of the table saw, but I couldn't flip my board upside down. For the joinery on the top of this, we went with a castle joint because she wanted something decorative at the top, not just a regular butt joint. We also needed a clever way to attach this to the tabletop, so hardware will be able to go through the wings of the castle joint. In order to start making that, pretty simple stuff. I have about a 5-inch wide piece by about 2 inches tall, and I'm just going to put lap joints right in the center that are the same thickness as my material, so they'll slide together, and that will start the creation of that top side castle joint. I have 2 stops on my table saw, on my crosscut sled, so I could just slide it, cut one end, slide it, cut the other end, and remove all the material in the middle. And that is what that looks like. Once you have more than one, you could test fit it. I haven't cleaned these up yet. They're a little rough, but they slide together perfectly, which is exactly what I wanted. Now a similar joint has to go on the top side of the legs to receive that castle joint. So each leg needs to get a cutout in the top that's 2 inches deep. In order to do that, because once again my legs are no longer square, I just use cutoffs from when I ripped these down so that I could safely put this on the same way I did the castle joints, but now they're nestled in those cutoffs, and I could cut one end, cut the other end, and then slide it across the middle to remove the excess. But because I'm using the cutoffs from the taper, they're now referencing that angle perfectly, and it's sitting against the crosscut sled safely. I don't have to worry about it twisting on me, and it's sitting perpendicular, so I don't have to worry about the angle being off, and just remove that material in the middle. Just a couple curve cuts, series of curve cuts. I could chisel out the rest, and you could see I could do all the legs like that. With a quick setup like this, it's easy to make things repeatable. And then at this point I could test it to make sure that the legs are going together, and then I could test the castle joint in the top to also make sure that fits together. The one problem with projects like this is because there's so many steps to get to your finished product, and you can't really test the bevels until you've cut all 4 sides, that if there is a mistake, I only bought enough lumber to do just what I needed to do, which is never smart, but it is what I did. But luckily the bevels turned out pretty much perfect. The castle joints turned out really good, so I didn't have to fret about needing to run back out to the store to get material. And that's what that all looks like dry fit together. At this point I could glue together the bases. Pretty simple. I just have blue tape on everything. I can add glue and let these set up overnight. The castle joint will go in later, and you'll see why, because there's a little bit more work left to do on them. But I did use the castle joints to kind of reference at the top to see if I needed to square it up. The blue tape will hold together all of those miters pretty well, but some parts did need some clamps. But once the clamps were in place, those legs glued together perfectly. There were really no spots I had to fix hairline cracks. At this point I could also glue together the top, which I haven't done yet. It's already started to warp. Now it's on that base. And so just on the edges at the seams, I use some clamps in order to hold everything together. I also use some clamp cauls in the center in order to keep everything flat. The next day I could come in, take all the clamps off everything, clean it up with a sander. So that at this point, because I tapered these, the bottoms do actually not sit square on the ground because they're now at an angle. And I also made them a little bit taller than I needed to because I knew I was going to have to trim these down. In order to trim them, I did a very quick setup on the crosscut sled. I have a stop. And then I just have a 3/4 inch piece of wood, which ended up working out to be enough to lift it. So the leg is now parallel with the top of the table saw, not sitting at an angle. And I also used a shim in the back, so the angle in the back couldn't kick the piece towards the cross-cut sled. It kept everything in place, and I could just cut all 4 sides, just flipping it over, really simple, and remove not only the added height, but square up the bottom. This ended up working out really well. You can see when I start taking it apart, the cutoff has no flanges or one side's thicker than the other, and the base was pretty much perfectly flat at this point. So that worked about as good as I could have hoped for. For the castle joints, I'm going to be sinking them into the tabletop with threaded inserts and bolts. So I'm going to do an oversized hole at first, about halfway through the material, so I don't have to use super long bolts. That will hold the head of the bolt, and then I could go through the entire piece with a drill bit so the bolt can go through the whole castle joint. And they were metric, but if you're comparing them to standard sizes, it was, I believe, around a 3/4 of an inch. At this point, I can glue the castle joints in place, so I could glue one side, add a bunch more glue the other side, and then those were all set up. The base is actually going to be weighted. We decided that because it's so skinny, even though it's sitting against the couch and it most likely will not tip over, it would not hurt to add some weight to these. So all I'm doing is taking a rabbiting bit and I'm creating a groove on the inside of the bottom of the pedestal. I could square up the corners, cut a scrap piece of ply. That ply will set in the base, and then now the hollow base has a cover and I could fill that with weights. I usually countersink hardware from using it, but especially for something against the floor, you want to countersink where you're going to be putting your screws so it doesn't scratch the floor. And then once I take those off, I took some trash bags. I kind of modified them to make them smaller. I hot glued together the seams, and I could stick this in the bag and then fill it with weight. Now, the nice thing about posting on social media is I've already posted parts of this project and people have asked me questions, and people mentioned weighting these with lead. I've used lead for counterweights in furniture before. It works great because it's extremely dense for the size that it is, but it's also extremely expensive. We weren't necessarily nervous about this table tipping over, just wanted it a hair sturdier, so I used stone dust on the inside of them. It was just enough weight, especially at the bottom, because this does settle down, to make it less tippy without breaking the bank. To finish this up, she had a piece of furniture already in the home that she wanted the stain to match as close as possible to, so that was something we went back and forth with and then settled on a couple stain samples to try on this. I started with putting pre-stain on there because it is a fine grain lumber. It could be blotchy. It most likely will be blotchy. Even with pre-stain, you can only help it so much, but it turned out pretty good. Put the pre-stain on there and then I stained everything. And like I said, I attached these with threaded inserts and screws. The screws are in the 2 legs of the castle joint that run with the grain, so seasonal movement will not pull up against those 2 screws. They're in line and parallel with the grain. To finish it up, she wanted a water-based finish because she didn't want the color to ever yellow or amber, and I put about 4 to 5 coats on there. I prefer multiple thinner coats versus thicker coats. And then that is essentially the finished table. It's a very different design, but it's always fun making stuff that it's a little different. And of course, if you watch the channel, you know I absolutely love repurposing materials. So all in all, a very different table, but an enjoyable build.